Today, we're going to talk about building one of the most powerful tools any business can have, a budget. And look, forget any ideas you have about a budget being this restrictive thing. We're talking about creating a financial roadmap, a blueprint that actually gives you control and a clear path to hitting your goals. Think about that for a second. It's really the big question, isn't it? A solid budget is what separates businesses that are always reacting to financial fires from those that are proactively steering their own ship. It's how you take the driver's seat. So we're going to walk through this whole process in 5 key stages. We'll start by laying the foundation. Then we'll calculate all the costs, project what our financial health will look like, finalize the whole plan, and then the most important part, put it all into action. All right, let's dive right in with part 1, laying the foundation. Just like you wouldn't build a house without a solid blueprint, you can't build a strong business without one either. This is really the golden rule of budgeting. You can't just pull numbers out of thin air. The whole process has to start by looking backward. You've got to dig into your past performance to make smart, realistic guesses about the future. So it all kicks off with 2 really critical steps. First, you gather your intel. That means pulling up old sales reports, looking at what the market is doing, and even checking economic forecasts. Then you take all that info and you forecast your sales. And this sales forecast, it's the absolute cornerstone of your entire budget. Everything else, staffing, inventory, marketing, it all flows from this one number. Get this part right, and you're starting on really solid ground. Okay, so let's move on to part 2. We've got our sales forecast, we know what we think we can sell. Now we have to figure out what it's going to cost to actually make that happen. This is where we start building out the core numbers. So based on that sales number, you can now start estimating your costs. And these costs really fall into 2 big buckets. First, if you make a physical product, you've got your production costs. That's the raw materials, the labor, all the stuff that goes directly into making your product. And second, you've got your operating expenses. Think of these as the cost of keeping the lights on. Things like salaries, rent, and marketing. All right, so we've got our estimated income and our estimated costs. Now for the really cool part. In part 3, we're going to put it all together and get a sneak peek into the future. A projection of our business's financial health. The very first thing we want to project is a cash budget, and this is so important. This isn't about profit, it's about cash flow. A cash budget tracks the actual money coming in and the actual money going out. Why? To make sure you'll always have enough cash in the bank to pay your bills and your team on time. It's a survival tool. Next up is the budgeted income statement. This is where we answer the big question. Is this whole plan actually going to make us any money? You take your projected revenue, subtract all those projected costs, and voila, you get a pretty clear picture of whether you're looking at a future profit or a loss. And that's really the magic of this stage, right? You're no longer staring at a confusing list of numbers. You're actually looking at a coherent picture, a preview of where your business is headed if you stick to the plan. You're turning data into real insight. Okay, on to part 4, finalizing the plan. We've got our draft, we've got our numbers. Now it's time to turn this thing into an official company-wide roadmap that everybody can actually get behind and follow. The last couple of steps here are all about teamwork. First, that draft gets a thorough review. Does it make sense? Is it realistic? Does it actually line up with our big picture goals? Once it gets the green light, the second step is absolutely crucial. Communicate it. Share it. A budget that only one person knows about isn't a plan, it's a secret. Everyone needs to know the targets. And that brings us to the grand finale, part 5, the budget in action. Because let's be honest, creating the budget is only half the battle. Now we've actually got to use the thing. This is where the rubber meets the road. Seriously, a budget that's just sitting in a file somewhere is completely worthless. Its real power is unleashed when it becomes a living, breathing tool that guides your financial decisions every single day. The real work starts right now. So how do we use it? Well, the main activity is a constant game of compare and contrast. On one side, you have your budget. That's the plan, what you expected to happen. And on the other side, you have your actual results, the real numbers of what you actually earned and spent. The gap between those two, that's what we call a variance. And when you see those variances pop up, that's your cue to spring into action. You don't just ignore them, you investigate. You put on your detective hat. Why did we spend more than we planned? Why are sales lagging? This is the control part of the budget. You take action. Maybe you find ways to cut costs, or maybe you launch a new sales push. And hey, if something huge and unexpected happens, you can even revise the budget. It's a cycle: plan, measure, adjust, repeat. And there you have it. When you follow this whole process, from gathering data all the way to actively tracking your results, you're not just creating a spreadsheet, you're building a powerful engine for financial control that will guide you directly toward your biggest goals. So as you build this roadmap for your own business, just think about that. A budget is so much more than numbers on a page. It's a story. It's a story about your business's priorities, its challenges, and its greatest opportunities. The only question left is, what story will yours tell?